Captain Ji-won pressed his face against the small window of the human ship Soul's Promise and stared at the massive space station ahead. The station was bigger than anything he had ever seen before, bigger than Earth's largest cities, bigger than the moon itself. Metal and crystal towers stretched in all directions like a metal forest that had grown in space for thousands of years. Lights blinked along its surface like stars, and ships moved around it like tiny insects around a giant flower. "Captain, we are getting close to the docking bay," said Communications Officer Minho from his seat behind Ji-won. His voice was calm, but Ji-won could hear the worry hiding underneath. They all knew this meeting would change everything for humanity. Ji-won turned away from the window and looked at his small crew. Science Officer Yuna was checking her computer screens one more time, making sure all the data about Earth was correct. Security Chief Taemin sat quietly in his chair, his hand resting on his weapon even though they all knew it would be useless here. These three people were his friends, his team, and now they were representing all of humanity in front of beings they had never seen before. "Remember what Ambassador Hyan told us," Ji-won said to his crew. "We listen, we learn, and we stay calm no matter what they say to us." The docking process took 30 minutes. Their small human ship looked like a toy next to the alien vessels. Around them, Ji-won saw ships that looked like giant metal fish, others that were perfect spheres covered in spikes, and some that seemed to be made of living crystal that glowed with their own light. Each ship was easily 10 times bigger than Soul's Promise. Ambassador Hyan was waiting for them in the docking bay. He was a tall man with gray hair who had spent his whole life preparing for moments like this. Next to him stood two strange beings that Ji-won recognized from the videos they had studied. These were Velkan tribute collectors, reptilian creatures, with scales that looked like green metal and eyes that never seemed to blink. "Captain Ji-won," Hyan said as they met. "Are you and your crew ready for this?" "As ready as we can be, sir," Ji-won replied. One of the Velkans stepped forward and spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "Humans will follow. Council waits. No delays permitted." They walked through corridors that were too big for human size. The walls were made of some kind of metal that changed color as they moved past it. Other alien beings moved through the halls, and Ji-won tried not to stare at the incredible variety of life forms. There were creatures that floated instead of walking, others that had too many arms or legs to count, and some that seemed to be made of light itself. The grand chamber of the Galactic Tribute Council was the most amazing and terrifying place Ji-won had ever seen. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness above them. Thousands of seats were arranged in circles, with the most important beings sitting in the center and others arranged around them based on their rank in the galactic order. Overlord Thex Rita sat on the highest throne in the center of the chamber. She was an insectoid being with 4 arms, compound eyes that reflected light like diamonds, and mandibles that clicked when she spoke. Around her sat the leaders of the most powerful species in the galaxy, each one commanding the loyalty and tribute of dozens of lesser races. "Humans approach," announced a Velkan in a voice that echoed through the huge chamber. "Newest species in galaxy, lowest rank. Tribute assessment begins now." Ji-won and his crew followed Ambassador Yeon to a small area marked for them near the edge of the chamber. From here they could see everything but felt very small and unimportant. Hundreds of alien eyes turned to look at them, studying these new creatures that had just learned to travel between stars. The tribute ceremony began with a long reading of the galactic law. A creature that looked like a walking tree with many branches spoke in a voice like wind through leaves. The law was simple and had been the same for 3,000 years. Every species in the galaxy was ranked by their power, technology, and military strength. Those at the bottom paid tribute to those above them. Those in the middle collected tribute from below and paid tribute to those above. Only the strongest species at the top collected tribute without paying any. This system had brought peace to the galaxy for longer than human civilization had existed. Wars were rare because everyone knew their place. The strong protected the weak, and the weak served the strong. It was natural, logical, and had worked perfectly for millennia. Now it was humanity's turn to learn their place in this ancient order. The assessment of Earth began with a detailed reading of everything the aliens had learned about humanity in the 6 months since first contact. They knew about human technology, which was primitive compared to most galactic civilizations. They knew about human military strength, which was laughably weak by galactic standards. They knew about Earth's resources, which were valuable but not unique in the galaxy. What they did not know was what made humans different from every other species they had encountered. Species designation human, announced the tree-like being. Homeworld designation Earth. Population 8 billion individuals. Technology level classified as primitive plus. Military assessment. Minimal threat. Tribute obligations beginning now. The list of demands that followed made Jiwan's blood run cold. 40% of all rare metals mined on Earth must be sent to 17 different alien civilizations every year. 10,000 humans must be provided annually to work as laborers for more advanced species. All human technology must be shared freely with any species that requested it. Most humiliating of all, Earth's entire space fleet of 200 ships must be surrendered to serve as auxiliary forces for higher-ranked civilizations. Ambassador Hyon listened to each demand without showing any emotion on his face, but Jiwan could see his hands clenched into fists. Around the chamber, representatives of other species watched with expressions that ranged from boredom to amusement. Every species remembered their first tribute assessment, and most felt sorry for the humans while being glad it was not them facing these demands. The reading continued for over an hour. When it finally ended, Overlord Thexarita leaned forward on her throne and spoke directly to the human delegation. Human delegation will now provide response to tribute assessment, she said, her mandibles clicking with each word. Compliance expected within standard galactic time frame. Ambassador Hyon stood up slowly and looked around the vast chamber. Every alien eye was focused on him, waiting for the words that every species eventually spoke when faced with the reality of galactic power. Honorable Council, Hyon said in a clear voice. Humanity requests 24 standard hours to consult with our homeworld government before providing our official response. A ripple of sound moved through the chamber as aliens made noises, of surprise or amusement. Most species accepted tribute demands immediately, knowing they had no choice. A few tried to negotiate for better terms, but always ended up accepting in the end. Very rarely did a species ask for time to consider, and when they did, it was usually because they were desperately trying to find some way to meet the impossible demands. Overlord. Thexarita's compound eyes glittered as she looked down at the humans. Request granted. 24 standard hours. No extensions permitted. Council expects compliance upon return. As the ceremony ended and the aliens began to file out of the chamber, Jiwan heard comments and conversations in dozens of different languages. Most of the aliens were already discussing how they would use their share of human tribute. A few expressed mild sympathy for yet another species, learning the harsh reality of galactic life. None of them suspected that humanity might have a different response than the thousands of species that had come before them. None of them imagined that these primitive beings from a small world might say something that had not been heard in the Galactic Council chamber for over 3,000 years. Walking back to their ship through the massive corridors of the station, Jiwan felt the weight of his species' future pressing down on him. In 24 hours, humanity would give their answer to the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same again. The emergency message from Ambassador Hyon reached Earth faster than any communication in human history. Within minutes of receiving the tribute demands, every major government on the planet was calling emergency sessions. In Seoul, President Soman sat at the head of a table surrounded by the most important leaders from every continent on Earth. The conference room had been built for moments like this, though no one had ever imagined they would be discussing whether humanity should bow to alien masters. Large screens showed the faces of presidents, prime ministers, and military leaders from around the world. Everyone looked tired and worried because they all understood that the next few hours would decide the future of every human being alive. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, said President Soman, looking at the report in front of her. These aliens want 40% of our rare metals, 10,000 of our people every year, all of our technology, and our entire space fleet. Is that right? That is correct, Madam President, said Foreign Minister Kyung, who had been working with the space program since first contact. According to Ambassador Hyon, this is how their galaxy has operated for 3,000 years. Every species pays tribute to stronger species above them. General Dae-hyun, the head of Earth's combined military forces, shook his head slowly. We have 200 ships in our space fleet. Some of these alien species have thousands of ships each. If we fight them, we will lose badly. How badly? Asked President Salman. Complete destruction, General Dae-hyun replied without hesitation. Our weapons are primitive compared to theirs. Our ships are smaller and slower. If even one of these species decides to attack Earth, we could lose billions of people. The room fell silent as everyone thought about this. Through the screens, world leaders looked at each other with the same expression of helpless fear. They had always known that first contact with aliens might be dangerous, but no one had prepared for this kind of systematic subjugation. Admiral Sung-jae, who commanded the space fleet, raised his hand to speak. General Dae-hyun is right about our disadvantages, but I think we might be missing something important about these aliens. What do you mean? President Somin asked. I have been studying all the data we collected during first contact, Admiral Sung-jae said. These alien civilizations are very advanced, but their military thinking seems strange to me. They have powerful weapons and big ships, but they do not seem to understand modern warfare tactics. Explain that, said General Dae-hyun. Admiral Sung-jae stood up and activated a holographic display that showed the alien ships they had encountered. Look at their ship designs. They are built for showing power, not for fighting efficiently. Their weapons are strong, but they mount them in ways that waste firepower. Their formations are formal and predictable. It is like they have forgotten how to fight real wars. Dr. Hana, Earth's leading expert on alien biology, had been studying the video recordings of the tribute ceremony. Admiral Sung-jae might be correct. I have been analyzing the behavior of every alien species we encountered, and I see something very interesting. She activated her own display showing biological data about the aliens. Every single species shows evolutionary signs of conflict avoidance. Their societies developed complex hierarchies specifically to prevent wars. Look at their body language, their social structures, their technology development. These beings have not fought a real war for thousands of years. That does not change the fact that they have more ships and better weapons than us, General Dae-hyun pointed out. No, but it might change how we use what we have, said Tech Director Ki-won, who had been quietly listening to the discussion. I need to share something with this group that has been classified until now. President Samin nodded for him to continue. For the past 6 months since we first detected alien signals, we have been secretly building ships faster than we have ever built anything before. We told the aliens we have 200 ships, and that was true 6 months ago. Today we have over 800 ships hidden throughout the solar system. The room erupted in surprised voices as world leaders demanded to know why they had not been told about this massive construction program. Tech Director Ki-won raised his hand for silence. We kept it secret because we suspected something like this might happen. The moment we detected organized alien civilizations, we realized they might not be friendly. So we began preparing. 800 ships is still not enough to fight thousands of alien ships, General Dae-hyun said. You are right. But you are thinking about this wrong, said military strategist Jaemin, who had been developing new combat doctrines for space warfare. We do not need to fight fair. We do not need to follow their rules. We do not need to protect their civilians or preserve their property. What are you suggesting? President Somin asked. Total war, Jaemin replied simply. These aliens have forgotten what that means. They think war is about formal battles between fleets with rules and honor codes. They do not understand kamikaze attacks, nuclear weapons used as ship-to-ship missiles, or fighters that ram into capital ships. They have never faced an enemy willing to lose everything to win. The discussion continued through the night as leaders debated every possible option. Some argued for trying to negotiate better terms. Others suggested partial compliance, while secretly building up military strength. A few proposed evacuating Earth entirely and looking for a new home world where the aliens could not find them. But as the hours passed, more and more leaders began to support what many called the unthinkable option. If we submit to tribute now, we will never be free again, said President Chen of the Asian Federation. Our children and their children will be slaves to these aliens forever. If we fight and lose, our children might not exist at all, replied Chancellor Muller of the European Union. There is a third possibility, said President Williams of the North American Alliance. We fight and win. How do we win against impossible odds? Someone asked. Admiral Sungjae answered that question. We win by being something they have never encountered before. We win by using weapons they have never seen. We win by fighting in ways they cannot understand. We win by being willing to do things they would never do. Dr. Hana added her own thoughts. These aliens have built a civilization based on avoiding conflict. They probably do not even understand what humans are capable of when we are truly threatened. We evolved as predators on a world full of predators. They evolved as prey animals, who learned to organize themselves to avoid being eaten. As dawn broke over Seoul, the debate finally reached its conclusion. President Somin looked around the table at faces tired from arguing all night, but now united in their decision. We all understand what this means, she said. If we choose this path, many of us will die. Earth itself might be destroyed, but if we do not choose this path, humanity as a free species will end forever. The vote was not even close. Every world leader chose the same option. President Somin activated the communication system to send a message to Ambassador Hyon on the alien space station. The message was short, simple, and would change the course of galactic history. Ambassador Hyon, please inform the Galactic Tribute Council that Earth's government has reached a decision. Our response will be delivered at the scheduled time. Tell them we said thank you for their offer, but humanity has a different answer. After sending the message, President Somin looked around the room one more time. I hope we are making the right choice. There is no right choice here, Admiral Sungjae replied. There is only the choice we can live with. Within hours, the secret construction facilities throughout the solar system received new orders. The hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt began working at maximum capacity. The weapon development labs on the far side of the moon accelerated their most dangerous projects. The training centers for space combat began preparing soldiers for battles unlike anything in human history. Earth was preparing for war against an entire galaxy, and, somehow, against all logic and reason, many people were beginning to believe they might actually have a chance to win. Ambassador Hyon stood outside the doors to the Galactic Council chamber and took a deep breath. In his pocket was a small device containing Earth's response to the tribute demands. The message was only one word long, but that single word would either save humanity or doom them to destruction. Captain Ji-won and his crew stood beside the ambassador, ready to support him in whatever happened next. Over the past 24 hours, they had seen more alien species arriving at the space station. Word had spread through the galaxy that the newest species was about to be formally inducted into the tribute system, and many civilizations had sent representatives to witness the ceremony. Are you ready for this, Ambassador? Ji-won asked quietly. As ready as anyone can be to change the course of galactic history, Hyon replied with a slight smile. Remember, no matter what happens in there, we represent every human being who has ever lived. We carry their hopes, their dreams, and their refusal to bow down to anyone. The massive doors opened with a deep rumbling sound, and they walked into the chamber that was now packed with even more alien beings than before. Every seat was filled, and some species were standing in the aisles because they did not want to miss this moment. The air itself seemed to vibrate with anticipation and excitement. Overlord Thexerita sat on her throne looking pleased with herself. Around her, the leaders of the most powerful species in the galaxy whispered to each other about how they would use their share of human tribute. The Velkin tribute collectors had already prepared schedules for collecting Earth's resources and workers. Human delegation approaches, announced the same tree-like being who had read the tribute demands the day before. Response to tribute assessment will now be heard. Council expects compliance and gratitude for acceptance into galactic order. Ambassador Hyon walked to the center of the chamber where a small platform had been placed for him to stand on. From there, his voice would carry to every being in the enormous room. Thousands of alien eyes focused on him, waiting to hear the words that every species eventually spoke when faced with the reality of galactic power. Honorable members of the Galactic Tribute Council, Hyon began, his voice clear and strong. The people of Earth have carefully considered your demands for tribute. We have discussed every aspect of your proposal with our world government and our military leaders. Overlord Thexerita leaned forward slightly, her compound eyes glittering with satisfaction. This was always her favorite part of the ceremony, when newly discovered species finally accepted their place in the galactic hierarchy. "We understand that this system has brought peace to the galaxy for 3,000 years, Hyun continued. "We understand that every species before us has found their proper place in this order. We understand that you believe humanity should do the same." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Many aliens nodded their heads or made sounds of approval. The human was saying exactly what they expected to hear. "However," Hyun said, and the chamber fell completely silent. "The people of Earth have discussed this matter thoroughly, and we have reached a unanimous decision about your demands." The pause that followed seemed to last forever. Every being in the chamber held their breath, waiting for the formal acceptance that would make humanity the newest tribute-paying species in galactic civilization. "Our response is simple and final," Hyun said, looking directly at Overlord Thexarita. "No." The word hit the chamber like a physical blow. For nearly 10 seconds, absolute silence filled the enormous space. No one moved, no one spoke, no one even seemed to breathe. The concept of simply refusing tribute was so alien to galactic civilization that most beings could not immediately process what they had just heard. "Translation error detected," said one of the Velkin tribute collectors, checking his communication device frantically. "Request clarification of human response." "There is no translation error," Hyun replied calmly. "Our response is no. We will not pay tribute. We will not surrender our ships. We will not send our people to work as laborers. We will not share our technology under threat. We will not bow." The chamber erupted into chaos. Aliens leaped to their feet, making sounds of shock, anger, and disbelief. The tree-like being's branches thrashed wildly as it tried to understand what was happening. A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish began flashing bright colors in what was clearly an expression of panic. "Impossible!" shrieked a being made of living crystal, its voice cutting through the noise like a knife. "All species pay tribute! All species submit! Galactic order demands compliance!" Overlord Thexarita raised all 4 of her arms, and gradually, the chamber fell silent again. Her mandibles clicked rapidly as she processed this unprecedented situation. In 3,000 years of galactic civilization, no species had simply refused to pay tribute. The concept did not exist in their legal system because it had never been necessary. "Human representative will reconsider response," she said finally. "Refusal not permitted under galactic law. Compliance required for continued existence." "We have already considered every aspect of this situation," Hyun replied. "Our answer remains the same. No." More chaos erupted as species that had never experienced defiance tried to understand what was happening. Some aliens demanded immediate military action to crush this rebellion. Others suggested that the humans must be insane and should be studied, rather than punished. A few whispered among themselves about what this might mean for the entire tribute system. The Korthak representative, a massive creature with too many tentacles to count, slithered forward to address the council. If humans refused tribute, other species might follow. System that maintained peace for millennia could collapse. This cannot be permitted. "Agreed," said the leader of the crystalline Zenathi, whose body rang like a bell when she spoke. "Example must be made. Humans must be forced to comply or destroyed completely." Overlord Thexarita stood up from her throne, her full height towering over everyone else in the chamber. "Human delegation will be given final opportunity for compliance. 17 species of tributary alliance will combine fleets if necessary. 4,000 ships will enforce galactic law." The threat was real and terrifying. Ambassador Hyun knew that Earth's 800 hidden ships could not realistically defeat 4,000 alien vessels in open battle, but he also knew that humanity had advantages these aliens could not imagine. "We understand your threat," Hyun said calmly. "We do not seek war with anyone, but we will not submit to slavery. If you choose to attack Earth, you will find that humans fight differently than any species you have encountered before. Primitive species cannot threaten galactic civilization," Overlord Thexarita replied. "Human technology inferior, human ships few in number. Human resistance will last less than 1 standard day." Hyun smiled, and somehow that smile made several alien representatives take a step backward. There was something in that expression that they had never seen before, something that spoke of dangers they could not understand. "You may be right," Hyon said. But before you attack Earth, you should understand one thing about humans that makes us different from every other species in this galaxy. What difference could possibly matter? Demanded a Velkan tribute collector. We evolved as predators, Hyon replied simply. Every other species in this chamber evolved as prey animals that learned to organize themselves to avoid being eaten. You built this tribute system to avoid conflicts that might destroy your civilizations. You have forgotten how to fight wars where survival is the only victory condition. The chamber fell silent again as aliens processed this statement. Many of them had never considered the evolutionary background of their own species, and the idea that some beings might have evolved differently was disturbing. Humans, on the other hand, evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill everything else, Hyon continued. We learned to hunt in packs, to use tools as weapons, to fight until our enemies were completely destroyed. When we are threatened with extinction, we do not surrender. We become more dangerous. Overlord Thexaritas. Mandibles clicked nervously. Human threats meaningless. Galactic Tribunal Alliance will crush human resistance quickly. Perhaps, Hyon agreed. But I should warn you that when we lose, we tend to take our enemies with us. Earth has prepared for your attack, and you will find that a species with nothing left to lose can be surprisingly creative about causing damage. The final vote of the Galactic Council was unanimous. 17 species would contribute ships to a massive fleet that would travel to the Sol system and force humanity to submit. If the humans continued to refuse, Earth would be destroyed as an example to any other species that might consider defying galactic order. As the council session ended and aliens began filing out of the chamber, Ambassador Hyon activated his communication device and sent a message to Earth that would be heard around the world. This is Ambassador Hyon reporting from the Galactic Council. The aliens have rejected our refusal to pay tribute. A fleet of over 4,000 ships from 17 different species will be arriving at Earth within the next few weeks. They expect us to surrender immediately when we see their overwhelming force. He paused and looked at Captain Jiwon, who nodded encouragingly. I told them that they do not understand what they are dealing with. Fleet Commander Vorth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive Velkan dreadnought called Tribute's Edge, and watched as the largest military force in galactic history assembled around him. Over 4,000 ships from 17 different species floated in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of the local star. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of alien military technology, accumulated over thousands of years of peaceful development. All fleet elements report ready for departure, announced his communications officer, a crystalline being whose voice chimed like music. Estimated travel time to human system, 18 standard days. Vorth nodded with satisfaction. He had been chosen to command this fleet because he had experience dealing with troublesome species, though never one that had outright refused tribute. The few times in galactic history when species had tried to negotiate or resist, they had surrendered, quickly when faced with overwhelming force. This mission would be no different. Begin hyperspace jump sequence, Vorth ordered. The humans will learn the price of defying galactic order. As the massive fleet disappeared into hyperspace, heading toward the Sol system, Earth was preparing for the greatest military mobilization in human history. Every secret construction facility throughout the solar system was working around the clock, building ships and weapons that no alien species had ever imagined. Admiral Shungjae stood in the command center built deep beneath the surface of Luna, watching status reports from dozens of hidden bases. The room was filled with officers and technicians working frantically to coordinate humanity's desperate preparations for war. Report from Asteroid Mining Station 7, called out Captain Borum from her position at the communications console. They have completed construction of 50 new assault ships and are beginning work on kamikaze drones. Excellent, Admiral Sungjae replied. What about the Mars facilities? Commander Young-ho reports that all surface-to-space missile batteries are operational, answered Lieutenant Minji. Nuclear warheads are being mounted on kinetic interceptors as we speak. Admiral Sungjae nodded and turned to the massive holographic display that showed the entire solar system. Red dots marked every hidden base, weapon platform, and ship construction facility that humanity had built in secret over the past 6 months. Blue dots showed the positions of Earth's official fleet, which the aliens knew about. Green dots marked the locations of Earth's secret fleet, which was now nearly 1,000 ships strong. Dr. Sunwoo, what is the status of our special weapons development? Admiral Sungjae asked. Dr. Sunwoo looked up from her technical displays, with a grim smile. Project Hellfire is complete. We have successfully miniaturized nuclear fusion bombs to fit inside single-person fighter craft. Any pilot willing to make the ultimate sacrifice can now take out an enemy capital ship. And Project Swarm? Ready for deployment. We have built over 10,000 autonomous attack drones that can operate independently once launched. Each one carries conventional explosives and will target enemy ship engines and weapon systems. Admiral Seungjae turned to military strategist Jaemin, who had been developing the overall battle plan for defending Earth. Are we ready? As ready as we can be to fight impossible odds, Jaemin replied honestly. The aliens have us outnumbered, 5-1 in ships, and their individual vessels are larger and more heavily armed than ours. But they also have weaknesses we can exploit. Explain, Admiral Sungjae ordered. Jaemin activated a tactical display showing alien ship designs captured during first contact. Look at their formations, their weapon placements, their tactical doctrines. Everything about their military is designed for formal battles between organized fleets. They expect enemies to fight honorably, to preserve civilian targets, to follow established rules of warfare. And we will not be doing any of those things, Admiral Sungjae said. Exactly. Our battle plan calls for hit-and-run attacks, kamikaze strikes, nuclear weapons used as tactical missiles, and complete disregard for our own casualties. These aliens have never faced an enemy willing to die to achieve victory. Captain Ji-won, who had returned from the diplomatic mission, raised his hand to speak. I saw how they acted during the tribute ceremony. They were shocked when we simply said no to their demands. They could not understand the concept of refusing to submit. When they see our actual combat tactics, they will be completely unprepared. That is what we are counting on, Admiral Sungjae agreed. Terror and confusion will be our greatest weapons. As the days passed and the alien fleet drew closer to Earth, humanity's preparations intensified. Every asteroid in the belt was hollowed out and turned into a weapons platform. The dark side of the moon became a massive military base hidden from alien sensors. Mars launched clouds of attack drones that spread throughout the solar system, waiting for the signal to strike. President Soman broadcast daily messages to the people of Earth, preparing them for what was coming. My fellow humans, she said in one address, we face an enemy that believes we should be their slaves. They think that because they have bigger ships and more advanced technology, we will surrender when we see their fleet. They do not understand that some things are more important than survival. The broadcast continued, with words that would be remembered throughout human history. We will show these aliens that humanity does not bow to anyone. We will show them that a species that evolved to be predators cannot be turned into prey. We will show them that freedom is worth any price, including our own lives. Throughout the solar system, human crews prepared for battles they knew many of them would not survive. Fighter pilots volunteered for kamikaze missions that would guarantee their deaths, but might take enemy capital ships with them. Ship captains prepared to ram their vessels into alien formations if their weapons failed. Soldiers on every world and station said goodbye to their families and prepared to fight until their last breath. Commander Nari, captain of the heavy cruiser Soul's Revenge, spoke to her crew as they prepared for departure from their hidden base in the asteroid belt. We all know the odds we are facing, she told them. The aliens have more ships, bigger weapons, and thousands of years of technological advancement, but they have never fought humans before. Her crew, over 300 men and women from every nation on Earth, listened intently as she continued. These aliens think war is a formal process with rules and honor codes. They think defeat means surrender and negotiation. They do not understand that when humans fight for survival, we fight until there is nothing left to fight with. Similar speeches were being given on ships throughout the solar system as humanity prepared for the most desperate battle in their history. Captain Hanel told her crew that dying with honor was better than living as slaves. Commander Daeho reminded his people that they were fighting for every human child who would ever be born. Squadron leader Jinsu explained to his fighter pilots that their sacrifice might save billions of lives. The psychological preparation was as important as the military preparation because everyone understood that conventional tactics would not work against the alien fleet. Humanity's only chance was to be so savage, so willing to die, and so utterly without mercy that the aliens would be too shocked and terrified to fight effectively. Dr. Hanna, the xenobiologist who had identified the aliens' evolutionary weakness, briefed military commanders on exactly how to exploit that weakness. These species evolved complex social hierarchies to avoid violent conflict, she explained. When they encounter violence that goes beyond their understanding, they will panic. They will make mistakes. They will break formation and flee rather than continue fighting. How much violence are we talking about? Asked one commander. Complete savagery, Dr. Hanna replied without hesitation. Ramming attacks, suicide bombings, nuclear weapons used at point-blank range, fighters that continue attacking even after their pilots are dead. We need to be more violent than anything in their evolutionary memory. As the alien fleet entered the outer edge of the Sol system, long-range sensors detected their approach. Admiral Sung-jae activated the general alert that would summon every human ship to battle stations. Throughout the solar system, hidden bases powered up their weapons and prepared to reveal themselves to the galaxy. This is Admiral Sung-jae to all human forces, he broadcast on every frequency. The alien fleet has arrived. They expect us to surrender when we see their overwhelming numbers. Instead, we are going to show them what happens when you threaten a species of apex predators. The final message went out to every human settlement in the solar system, from the mining colonies on the moons of Jupiter to the research stations orbiting Saturn. Remember what we are fighting for. Remember that surrender means slavery for our children and our children's children. Remember that some things are worth dying for. As the alien fleet moved deeper into the solar system, confident in their overwhelming superiority, they had no idea that they were flying into the most savage trap in galactic history. Humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson that would change the course of civilization forever. Fleet Commander Vorth emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, expecting to see a small collection of primitive human ships waiting to surrender. Instead, his sensors detected something that made no sense, according to everything. The galaxy knew about warfare. The entire solar system had been turned into a weapon. Scanning multiple energy signatures throughout the system, reported his sensor officer, a floating creature whose tentacles danced nervously over the control panels. Detecting weapons platforms hidden in asteroid formations, missile batteries on planetary surfaces, and ship concentrations that do not match our intelligence estimates. Vorth studied the tactical display with growing confusion. The humans were supposed to have 200 ships, but sensors were detecting nearly 1,000 separate vessels scattered throughout their star system. More disturbing, these ships were not arranged in any formation the galaxy recognized as proper military doctrine. Communications, broadcast surrender demand to human forces, Vorth ordered. Inform them that compliance with tribute requirements will prevent planetary bombardment. The response came back in less than 5 minutes, and it was not what any alien commander expected to hear. This is Admiral Seung-jae of the Earth Defense Force, the human voice said calmly. Your fleet is trespassing in human space. You have 10 minutes to turn around and leave our system, or we will consider your presence an act of war. Shocked silence filled the bridge of Tribute's edge as alien officers tried to process what they had just heard. No species in galactic history had threatened a tribute collection fleet. The concept was so alien to their understanding that many of them wondered if their translation systems were malfunctioning. Impossible, Vorth said finally. Scan for additional human forces. They must be hiding their true military strength. That was when the trap Admiral Sung-jae had spent months preparing finally sprung. The asteroid belt, which had appeared empty, on long-range scans, suddenly erupted with activity as hundreds of hidden human ships powered up their engines and weapons. What the aliens had thought was empty space filled with vessels that had been disguised as space debris. Admiral, we are detecting massive energy signatures from Luna, reported the sensor officer. The human moon appears to be opening. Vorth watched in horror as the surface of Earth's moon split apart like a flower blooming, revealing massive weapons installations that had been built into the lunar interior. Railguns longer than city blocks rose from hidden chambers and began tracking alien ships. Nuclear missile silos opened across the lunar surface like countless eyes staring at the invading fleet. "This is not possible," Vorth said, his voice filled with disbelief. Intelligence reports indicated minimal human military capabilities. The first attack came from Mars, where Commander Young-Ho had been waiting for this moment. The red planet launched a cloud of 10,000 autonomous attack drones that spread throughout the solar system like a metal swarm. Each drone was programmed with one simple instruction: find alien ships and destroy them by any means necessary. "Incoming missile attack from the fourth planet," called out the sensor officer. Tracking approximately 10,000 small craft approaching at high speed, Vorth ordered his fleet to engage the attacking drones, confident that superior alien technology would easily destroy these primitive weapons. But the drones did not behave like any military technology the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of attempting to avoid defensive fire, they accelerated toward alien ships even faster, using their own destruction as a weapon. The first drone impacts came as a shock to the alien fleet. Rather than exploding harmlessly against shield systems, the human weapons tore through defensive barriers using brute kinetic force and crude nuclear explosives. Worse, when alien point defense systems destroyed the drones, the wreckage continued moving forward and impacted enemy hulls like high-velocity shrapnel. "Damage reports coming in from multiple ships," announced the communications officer. "These human weapons are ignoring standard defensive protocols." That was when Captain Ji-won led the first wave of human ships into attack range, and the aliens got their first taste of human combat doctrine. The Soul's promise had been upgraded with nuclear missiles and kinetic ram charges, and Ji-won intended to use both. "All ships, attack pattern Alpha," Ji-won broadcast to his squadron. "Remember, we are not trying to win a fair fight. We are trying to kill as many of them as possible before they kill us." The human ships did not attempt to engage in the formal fleet maneuvers that alien civilizations had practiced for thousands of years. Instead, they scattered into small groups and began hit-and-run attacks that targeted alien ships one at a time. When human vessels took damage, instead of retreating for repairs, they accelerated toward the nearest enemy ship and attempted to ram it. Commander Nari, captain of Soul's Revenge, found herself facing a Velkin heavy cruiser that outgunned her, ship 3-1. Instead of attempting to fight at long range, she ordered her ship to close to point-blank range and activated the nuclear self-destruct system that Dr. Sunwoo had installed in every human vessel. "This is Commander Nari to Admiral Sungjae," she broadcast as her ship closed with the enemy. "Tell my family that I died free rather than lived as a slave." The explosion that followed vaporized both the Soul's Revenge and the Velkin cruiser in a ball of nuclear fire that could be seen from halfway across the solar system. But instead of demoralizing the human forces, the sacrifice only made them fight more savagely. "Did she just ram her ship into ours?" asked a Korthak tactical officer, his tentacles writhing in confusion. "Confirmed," replied the sensor operator. "Human ship deliberately destroyed itself to damage our vessel." This was the moment when the alien fleet began to understand that they were facing something unprecedented in galactic history. These humans were not fighting to win according to established rules of warfare. They were fighting to kill as many enemies as possible before dying themselves. Squadron leader Jin-Soo led a formation of 50 human fighters against an alien battle group, knowing that his small craft stood no chance against capital ship weapons. But he also knew that each fighter carried enough nuclear explosives to cripple an enemy vessel if they could get close enough. "All fighters, kamikaze formation," Jin-Soo ordered his pilots. "We die today so that Earth lives tomorrow." The human fighters spread out and began individual attack runs against alien ships, each pilot steering his craft directly into enemy hulls when their weapons were exhausted. The aliens watched in horror as enemy after enemy simply refused to retreat or surrender, choosing death over defeat in ways that their evolutionary programming could not comprehend. Captain Hanul commanded the heavy cruiser Busan's Fury when it came under attack from 3 alien ships simultaneously. Her vessel was outgunned and badly damaged, but instead of surrendering, she ordered her crew to abandon ship and then piloted the vessel manually into the center of the alien formation. "This is for every human child who will never be born free," she said into her communicator as the Busan's Fury exploded in the middle of the alien battle group, taking 2 enemy ships with it. By the 6th hour of combat, Fleet Commander Vorth realized that his fleet was facing something no military academy in the galaxy had prepared them for. The humans were not trying to win a conventional battle. They were trying to kill so many aliens that the survivors would be too terrified to continue fighting. Casualty reports, Vorth demanded. We have lost over 800 ships, his tactical officer reported. Human losses are estimated at approximately 400 vessels, but they continue to attack without regard for their own casualties. How? Is this possible? Vorth asked. They are outnumbered and outgunned. Sir, said his sensor officer quietly, I think they do not care about being outnumbered. They are fighting like they have already accepted death and are only trying to take as many of us with them as possible. The turning point came when Admiral Seung-jae personally led the final human attack wave. His flagship, the massive battleship Terra's Wrath, had been hidden behind Jupiter's largest moon and emerged at full acceleration with a fleet of 200 human ships following behind. All human forces. This is Admiral Seung-jae, he broadcast, on every frequency. We have shown these aliens what happens when they threaten our families. Now we show them what happens when they threaten our world. The final battle was the most savage engagement in galactic history. Human ships that had exhausted their ammunition rammed alien vessels. Fighters whose pilots had been killed continued attacking on autopilot. Damaged human ships that should have retreated instead activated their self-destruct systems in the middle of alien formations. Fleet Commander Vorth watched his formation disintegrate as ship after ship fell to human attacks that defied every principle of civilized warfare. The aliens had superior technology and greater numbers, but they had never encountered an enemy that treated their own deaths as weapons to be used against their enemies. Sir, his communications officer said urgently, we are receiving surrender requests from 17 of our allied ships. They are requesting permission to withdraw from combat. Denied! Vorth shouted. We came here to enforce galactic law. Sir, the officer continued,